So, we would go stand in the middle of kids that started getting a little bit out of control, and then they'd calm down and they'd go away because there was a teacher there. I venture to say the same thing would happen on our borders right now with Mexico. We don't need to build a wall. We don't need to build a fence. That's not going to do any good anyway. What we really need to do is work on the immigrants that we do get coming to America, making it a little bit easier probably for them to gain their citizenship.
Yes, so that's the big problem. You see, it's just like, I look at this, I don't want to interrupt, but this is my viewpoint, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, that when for example, well, again, I was adopted, as you had mentioned, and it's true. Mm-hmm. And but so my adopted family, they came through Ellis Island, the grandparents, my grandparents, right? So they went through it to make sure that they were healthy, to make sure that they weren't sick, and then they were legal. They became legal citizens, and they went to work and raised families, etc., so on, right? And that's what grew our country. If it wasn't for that, the robber barons wouldn't be who they are. Anyway, the truth is that it is designed again so that these people have more of an incentive to get through illegally than to get through legally. Right. And just like what you said with Fast and Furious, well, Hegelian dialectic. Let's give the drug dealers guns so they can cause violence. And they got caught. And it blew up, but now the media throws it under the rug because nobody wants to talk about it. But this is hot. We have Robby. I mean, when you're elected president, you've got to get rid of these corrupt forces, like in our government. For example, obviously, we've got the most corrupt career Justice Department head. I mean, he's been in the Justice Department for what, 20 years?
Well, let me tell you something else that I'm going to do when I become president of the United States, okay? And this is truly a travesty, what's been going on. I will grant a full presidential pardon to Border Patrol agents Ramos and Compion, who were doing their job, and yet for doing their job, they were arrested and put in federal prison, have felonies on their record. Now, they're out of prison now, but they have not been completely pardoned, which means they can't go back to work with their job. Not only will I have them a full pardon, but I will ask them if they would like to have their jobs back with back pay, and to give them a raise, and to give them a promotion. I think they've earned it.
Absolutely. Amen to that, and that's the truth. My God, that's it. You see, we need somebody who's straight. And this is just great, Robby. Now, let's stick on this since we're hitting, because it has to do with Border Patrol. It has to do with immigration. It has to do with this rise, to cause all this trouble and make money. Drug dealers. These guys blew the whistle. We have Eric Holder on record, busted, even on the liberal MSNBC, getting these guys on there, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. I didn't know about it. I wasn't there. These it's like you got to clean house. It's almost like you got to go in there with an axe and just chop off all the fat, all this evil, these lifelong people that have been doing things. Holder said we have to mind control people. We have to brainwash them about how they think about guns. Well, you think 17 years later, 17 years later, we're a little more mind controlled than we were? I think so. I think the basic population, they keep having all of these events, and they polarize our country. What if somebody went with a bow and arrow and went around with a bow and arrow, and they were really deft and they killed 15 people in a restaurant? Would we ban bow and arrows? It's funny that you say that, Howard. I believe it was this summer where a young man went into a university classroom with a crossbow. And that's kind of been swept under the rug, too. I mean, we're going to do away with all the crossbows. And here's another thing that I will say. Okay, drunk drivers. Same thing.
They get behind the wheel of a car. And they kill someone. Are we going to do away with vehicles now? Of course not. It's not the gun that kills somebody, because if I lay a gun on a table and say, shoot that guy, it's not going to shoot that guy. the person actually has to pick that gun up and has to make the decision that they're going to actually pull that trigger. So, guns is not the problem. We need to work a little bit more diligently at determining, okay, who fits the profile. If you look at some of these tragic events that have occurred just in the past few months, let's look at the similarities between each one of these psychopaths that's been out there. And if you start doing that, you'll find the similarities, and then we can start going and say, okay, these psychotropic drugs that they're on cause some major problems. Okay,
Bang!
Maybe just, yeah.
That's it. It is.
Yeah.
Do you know more people are hooked on pharmaceutical drugs? I'm talking about ones that get you high, than heroin, cocaine, and marijuana combined. But yet, there's no real oversight on it. It's another thing that's hushed up under the rug because the drug companies control all the money that goes through the media. And right. I mean, everything's a Lunesta. Take Lunesta, you might want to kill yourself though after you take it, or take Chantix, you might want to kill yourself, or take Lyrica, you might get some cancer, or take some Orencia, it gives you cancer. But ask your doctor, he knows. We have to go after the pharmaceutical companies. What is your viewpoint, since we're talking about a lot of things, and we did cover a lot, but I really got to talk about how you see healthcare. We sort of like like we talked a little bit about it, but don't you think that having insurance companies and drug companies creating a healthcare plan and exempting natural cures for ages, this is very important right here. What I'm about to say, this is a very important matter. The FDA, the CDC, especially the FDA, have attacked people such as Dr. Antonella Carpenter, who has an alternative cure for cancer. And as a free American, we should all have the rights to treat our bodies in any way that we see fit. It's bad enough that if you want to get a thermostat instead of a mammogram, your insurance company won't cover the thermoscan because you don't want to get dangerous radiation that causes cancer. You have to pay for that, $250, but they'll cover the mammogram. So how can we continue to have our freedom? In your viewpoint, what could you do? Hopefully we can get Obamacare overturned completely, but what is your viewpoint on how we can reduce costs and keep us having our free medical choices?
Very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple to make the costs go down, Howard. First of all, the healthcare industry is 1/6 of our economy here in the United States. That's why the federal government is so deeply involved with the healthcare industry. You want to see healthcare costs go down, get the federal government out of healthcare and let the free market enterprise actually work, and let these insurance companies actually have to compete against each other, and prices will go down.
That's right. They absolutely will. And then my other viewpoint is, as far as insurance coverages, alternative cares and holistic treatments, for the most part, are not covered by insurance. And again, the American Medical Association has never, ever taken in a member who was a holistic care to this day. They have created a cartel that is allopathic medicine. It's a German form of medicine, which is surgery and pharmaceuticals. So we're given these choices now to take all these pharmaceutical drugs that have all these horrific side effects. How can we better protect the public from basically Big Pharma making you sick to treat you with more drugs? Shouldn't they be responsible for that? Shouldn't we be investigating? Shouldn't the FDA really be doing its job instead of working for the drug companies who actually pay for their own studies, by the way?
Well, these drug companies are in bed with a lot of people in federal government too, lining their pockets to make them look the other way. You know that, and I know that.
Of course.
The thing that the pharmaceutical companies have done, they've taken the same business model that a lot of these automobile makers have taken. In other words, they're going to make a nice product, a nice car, But after about 3 or 4 years, what happens? Something on that car is going to break down, so you have to take it back in to the shop, and you have to spend $1,000 to get it fixed. There's so much more money out there if you've got to bring your car back in to get it fixed. Same thing with these pharmaceuticals. Yeah, you can take this one drug and it may make you feel better for a little while, but then after a while, the side effects from it, because it's not a natural occurrence that's going on in your body, creates something else. So then you've got to take this other drug, and it's all part of that business model to keep people hooked on drugs, so that these pharmaceutical companies can thrive and make the money.
Well said, and that is it. Again, we're so on base here with all of these subjects, and I agree with just about everything. People are not aware of this, Robby, so I'm going to do my best. I do my best to give this information out. As you can see, I put these little rants in between our dialogue because I try to get as much of it out. But it is all connected, and to have somebody that is articulate, such as yourself, experienced, motivated, and understands the issues and the problems, well-researched, it is pretty simple. Like you said, a lot of it's just hard work, but it's the premise is simple. We just have to restore our Constitution. Would we be looking at since the executive orders are so obviously unconstitutional, I can understand an executive order was intended to benefit the people and the president giving them the power to do so, but it seems as though all of these executive orders go against the people. So what would you do about this if you were elected president, or I should say when you're elected president, Robby?
Well, when I'm elected in November 2016, what I intend on doing is being a working president. And what that means is this: the very first day that I'm in office, I'm going to start going through the executive orders, and we're going to start repealing these executive orders, because there's so many that are so unconstitutional. We've got to get back to following the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States. And I've got enough people surrounding me now, advisors, that we can get that done, and we can probably get it done fairly quickly. But now, what I will tell you is this: the shape our country is in right now, Howard, did not get here. We did not get here overnight. It took years and years to get us to this point.
I'd say about 112 years, because they started this whole thing before the Wizard of Oz was written about. This whole the idea of the Wizard of Oz and the gold and the man behind the curtain. Frank Baum was obviously wide awake back then about the gold. That gold was, they're taking us away from gold, and even though the gold wasn't there, didn't they? He was right. Only a few years later, gold was taken from the people. The people.
You're right. So it's going to take some time. It's about like someone that goes to a surgeon because they've got a huge tumor on their back, and they say to that surgeon, "Can you remove this tumor?" And the surgeon says, "Sure, I can remove the tumor." Well, if that surgeon goes up and just whacks it off their back, that person could bleed to death. What has to happen is that surgeon has to surgically and carefully and meticulously remove that tumor. And as he cuts away slowly and gets to blood vessels, he has to tie them off so that the patient does not bleed to death. It's the same way with everything that's going on with our country. We've got to cut away a lot of this dead weight, but if we just go in and just whack it off, we could bleed to death. So it's going to be a step-by-step approach to getting it done, but it's not going to happen overnight. It will take some time to get all of this accomplished.
Yes, it will, and again, we're touching on all these important subjects, and this is a big one. It's not going to. It wouldn't be obviously in an 8-year limitation on your presidency. We would move forward, but 8 years can't erase over 100 years of real deception